We have some very interesting signals that have appeared in the Schumann resonances, and typically I don't make these sort of videos on a Sunday. I like to rest, but because this is very unusual, I wanted to go ahead and look at this and just explore what this could be, because we've seen these before, and one time it was right before a very significant earthquake in Turkey. And then we saw them another time and nothing happened. So regardless, they're very unusual signals. I see all of you in there. Love, light, blessings to everyone. We'll be doing a Q&A at the end of the video. I can't guarantee it's going to be a long Q&A. But in general, today we're all just going to explore what we're seeing here because it's very odd. And we're seeing some unusual activity in our background electromagnetic field in that 0 to 100 hertz range, which is where the Schumann resonances live. So here we have our Schumann resonances. Here we have our data out of Tomsk, Russia. They collect this vertical electric field data going from 0 to 40 hertz using a T antenna. So they string out this wire and they measure the vertical electric field vibrations doing that. We're going to kind of go into what the Schumann resonances are, but we'll lay this all out throughout the video. So they have a pretty good place in Tomsk, but they get a lot of weather. So there's often a lot of power bursts like this because of weather, and sometimes there's a lot of wind, which creates microphonics, and so you get these vibrations that show up as power increases in the Schumann resonances, though they are not. And so we often get kind of false data out of Tomsk, but today it's nice and sunny there. It's nighttime now, but the whole day it was nice and sunny. And here we see 12 hours of increased power in the Schumann resonances. This is 0 hertz all the way to 40. So here's mode 1 at 7.8 hertz. Here's mode 2 at 14, mode 3 at 20, mode 4 at 25, mode 5 at 33. And yeah, we've had a lot of electrical activity recently. And so we see our normal increase and decrease in the Schumann resonances. They are these energy waves that are naturally resonant with the Earth, and they propagate across space and time, and they don't really diminish because they're always being fed by lightning strikes and by electric currents in the ionosphere and things of this nature. So this is, for example, right here, this is when Southeast Asia has a lot of lightning activity. That's the Southeast Asia lightning chimney. If you want to research into this, this is what creates this increase right there. It's also daytime, though it starts to fade into night, right? And here's our normal daytime increase. We see it starting around like 5 a.m. This is all local time, UTC +7 for Tomsk. So that lines up perfectly with, for example, like Thailand. That's also UTC +7. So there's a lot of lightning activity in Asia, Southeast Asia. So you get this increase in the Schumann resonances during that time, especially for an observation station that's fairly close by, like Tomsk is, same time zone. But if we look here, we see this massive increase. So maybe there is a tremendous amount of lightning activity over Southeast Asia, but it was basically clear weather, fair weather conditions in Tomsk. And I checked and the wind actually went down. So there wasn't really any significant wind activity either. So this is not a local thunderstorm passing directly over Tomsk. And we see what lightning activity does in Southeast Asia. It fades out. It does cause these increases, but it fades out. So we have this big power burst right now in the Schumann resonances as measured out of Tomsk. But that's not the most interesting thing. That's just what I want to show you to start. We'll go back to this data. What's really interesting is this data that we have out of Laurentian University. So I'll scroll up. This is from vlf.it, and they have a whole bunch of observatories, most of them in Italy. We'll look at some of them as well. And they measure the magnetic field and also the vertical electric field. And they have different properties. So you want to look at both of them typically. And when you have a really significant electrical impulse on Earth, like let's say a massive volcano, you get activity in a power increase in both the magnetic and the electric component. So keep that in mind. We're not seeing what I'm about to show you in the magnetic field here, right? It's not, we're not seeing it. We get the normal Schumann resonances. See them right there? This one goes from 0 to 60 hertz that way. So it's flipped. The spectrogram is flipped. But here's mode 1 right there, mode 2, mode 3, so on and so forth. We're not seeing this in the magnetic field. But if we go down to our vertical electric field, which is right here, see these strange wave patterns? Very odd. Nope. I mean, we've seen this before. I'm going to show you some archive data that I have, but this is very bizarre. So let's look at this specifically and really analyze this exactly. And some of you may want to take notes to write down the frequency characteristics so you can study this yourselves, because I'm just reporting on this right now. So I've looked at it a little bit, but I'm really just, I got up, I saw this, and boom, we're live. So here we have our vertical electric field spectrogram going from 0 all the way to 105 hertz. This is from Canada. So actually, let me go back really quick and show you where specifically this is being measured. Maybe they don't have the map. No, they do up here. So this is where this is being measured in North America, right near the Great Lakes. Right now there's a weather system over here, but the Great Lakes are clear. We can actually see this. If we go to our weather map, here's our live weather map, and we see that there's that weather system that's nearby, but not there yet. And actually, that's not relevant at this moment because this data is actually now gone offline. It's way past 1140 UTC time now. So we started seeing this activity in the Schumann resonances out of Canada, and then the data feed got cut. Don't know why. If we go over to Tomsk, we see that it's nighttime now. Here's Tomsk right there. No significant weather activity in Tomsk. It's just kind of cloudy, but it wasn't a big thunderstorm rolling through. We do see some activity in Southeast Asia, but we always see activity like this in Southeast Asia. If you live there, you know. So let's go back to our vertical electric field spectrogram. I see all you in the chat. We'll do a live stream in a little bit, so just FYI. And for the live stream, make sure to at Stefan Burns so it pops up really clearly, or else there's so many that I can't track them. So if you want any question answered, remember to do that. So here we have our vertical electric field spectrogram out of Canada. And so let's analyze this. We have mode 1 here at 7.8 hertz, mode 2 there at 14, mode 3 at 20, mode 4. These are all harmonics. They're all kind of like chords, right? Notes in a chord. Then we have mode 4 at 25 hertz and then 33, and we see that it actually fades up. If they gain this higher, if they increase the gain on this, we would see Schumann resonances there too. But the strongest ones are the lower frequency ones, and then they diminish as you go up in strength until eventually they're no longer able to resonate at such a high frequency. They attenuate out. So we see that this wave pattern actually started kind of back here with just some little jagged kind of bursts of energy. See these right there? This is back around 10. Sorry, let's zoom out of this a little bit. There we go. This started back at 6 a.m. UTC time. So this is Canada. So it's, of course, that would be about nighttime for Canada. And then we see this first small little bump there going from, this is mode 2. So going from 14 hertz all the way up to mode 4 at 25. Then it went back down. So first we had this, and this is a 2-hour window here. So 1 hour is right there, and then a second hour right there. So this is about a 40-minute increase there, where we go from mode 2 at 14 hertz to mode 4 at 25 hertz, and then we go back down to mode 2 before we start a longer 2-hour period increase there. And now it's going up to the higher frequencies. So it's still also staging itself at mode 2, but then it goes beyond that. So it goes from 14 hertz up to, we have 20, 25, 33, 39 hertz, and then back down. And then this did the same thing. Actually went even higher. You can see that general trajectory there, and then went back down. So it's almost like this building wave pattern, right? Like the waves are coming in after low tide. The first one's small, next one's bigger, third one's bigger, right? Very unusual. Really don't know what that's from, but we do see that very clearly. I don't think I have to really highlight this too much. I mean, I notice it instantly when I have these pop up anytime I load up my browser, and typically you don't see anything unusual. It's just the normal Schumann resonances. but this is a energy wave pattern that's overlaid on top of the normal background electromagnetic field activity in the vertical electric field. So let's quickly just kind of talk about what the Schumann resonances are. We have a lot to go over. Schumann resonances are extremely low frequency standing waves of light energy that are naturally resonant with the Earth because of her physical dimensions. So what does that mean? You have the Earth itself. It's a obloid spheroid, and it has a diameter, or has a circumference rather, has a circumference of about 40,000 kilometers. And so a light photon is able to travel around the Earth 8 times in a second. And if a light photon has a wavelength of 40,000 kilometers, now it's naturally resonant with the Earth, its circumference. If Earth's circumference was 20,000 kilometers, then the resonant frequency of the Earth would be a light wave that had a wavelength of 20,000 kilometers. So 40,000 kilometers for the wavelength is the base Schumann frequency. That turns out to be 7.8 hertz on average. It ranges from 7.2 to 8.8 hertz. And then you have the other modes, which are harmonics of that. So there are a higher frequency pulse of that foundational mode. And we're receiving light energy from the sun all the time, but we're also having light photons being produced by things like lightning strikes. So there's all these energy feeds into, there's all these energies always being produced across from 0 hertz in the light spectrum all the way up to gamma rays. The question is, which ones are able to sustain themselves the longest without being absorbed into a medium? And so you have a lot of things that will instantly absorb light. For example, black. Something that's black likes to absorb light. It just grabs that photon instantly, draws it into its electron shell, right? But there's other frequencies of light that aren't absorbed easily, like 8 hertz. And it's because it's naturally resonant with the Earth, but there's other interesting properties about 8 hertz as well. For example, there is a type of metal that absorbs electromagnetic radiation and magnetic fields. They use it to build these magnetic field chambers that block out Earth's magnetic field and drop the strength to just in the super low nanotesla range, like 10 nanotesla, where normally the field strength is 50,000 nanotesla. And mu metal. And it doesn't block Schumann resonances. It blocks everything else. The frequency is lower than Schumann resonances. It absorbs, like the actual magnetic field, the direct current magnetic field, right? The static magnetic field absorbs that. But then the 8 hertz zone, that like 5 to like 30 hertz zone, it doesn't absorb well. And then everything above that absorbs well. So there's something odd about Schumann resonances. They naturally propagate and they resonate. And we evolved in them. We have these biologic interactions with them. So when I comment on what we're seeing here, we're talking more than just about the geophysical energy layers. This is also some unusual bioenergetic pattern, at least that's being given to us, which is interesting to think about. You're not late. There is a Q&A at the end of the video, so keep that in mind. So we have this unusual wave of activity right now in the Schumann resonances. If you've been feeling it, please comment below. If you have any, experience or observations on this, let me know. I mean, I had a normal sleep. I feel fine. But the timing on this, you can check the timing. Let's be scientific. Let's look at the timing and see if there was any sort of felt experiential, observations that you have that you can leave in the description. So let's go back to our data out of Tomsk and look at some of the factors there, because it's interesting. So again, here is our power burst out of Tomsk that doesn't have this wave pattern imposed upon it. So we get that wave pattern on the data out of Canada, but we don't have it out of Tomsk. But we do have this unusual kind of asynchronistic power burst in Tomsk. So there sometimes is a way that these things show themselves differently. I don't really know how to explain it. But we do have this unusual power burst out of Tomsk, and it's not lightning related. We can look at our amplitude data here. And so we see that this is, increasing the power in the vertical electric field for these specific frequency bands. Mode 1 there, the white line went to 55. This is a relative amplitude scale. And then mode 2 here went to 46, so fairly close. Typically, there's a little bit more gap between them. Mode 3, 17, that's the red line, 20 hertz, right? 17 on the relative amplitude scale. And mode 4 at 25 hertz went to 13 amplitude. We see that they all rose up and now they're starting to come back down. This also correlates nicely with the frequency data. We can look at that. Here we have our frequency data. And so we see that when power goes up, frequency goes down, and now the frequencies are starting to recover. But we see this low there for mode 1 all the way down to 7.29. So extremely low. That's just hitting the bottom of the barrel for that possible frequency range. And then the other modes also went down. So mode 2 here went down to 12.8. And then mode 3 went all the way down to 18.5. And mode 4 in green down to 24.3 hertz. So the frequency kind of range is a little lower for the higher frequencies, but still all of them went down and then they're starting to go up again. So we're seeing this wave pattern out of Canada. We're seeing this frequency drop out of Russia and this power increase out of Russia and also Hungary. We can look at the Hungarian data really quick. I just want to make sure I get the right one up. Where is it? Is this it? No, that's not it. There it is. Here we have our Schumann resonances out of Hungary. So close, kind of in between actually Canada and Russia. If we were to look at this is like UTC plus 2. And Canada's UTC minus 4, I believe. And so we do see, if we pop this up into the full screen, there we go. We do see some power increases there, and there's really no significant lightning activity nearby. We can check the map. There's it's just like some very light precipitation. They've had 0.35 inches of rain over the past 24 hours, and that was more back in here. But here we do see this increase in the lower frequencies, and then we even see a pretty significant power bump right there. Let me zoom in more. This is the vertical electric field that we're looking at right there. So these are the magnetic components. Again, no unusual activity in the magnetic components. So we have to keep that in mind. What we're seeing here is isolated to the vertical electric field. But we do see some increases in the vertical electric component. So we know that we're working with the global electric circuit now. Something with the global electric circuit is changing. That ionosphere ground surface energy flow is being modulated right now. So we'll talk about that. But we're just looking at our data to start. And so we do see some power increases right there. And that lines up really nicely with the time that this occurred at. So if we zoom down, this is all around, that's what, 12 right here. So this is about 1400 UTC right there. And we see that starting around 9 a.m. UTC time. So we see this starting to start and then actually reach its peak here at about 1400 UTC, still continuing on. That's what we're seeing out of Tomsk. And we probably would be seeing more data, like we'd probably be seeing more of these waves out of Canada if the data feed didn't get cut. Again, this stopped at 1140 UTC. See right there, the last snapshot, 1140 UTC. And so this data feed often goes down. Don't really know why, but I have talked to the guy who operates this, and he works with HARP and different ionospheric heater groups because he has these observatories, so he monitors the signals that come in through them. So yeah, we don't really know exactly what's happening. Yeah, the dream state has been weird recently. A lot of reasons for that, but yeah, multiple people commenting on that can speak to that. So yeah, just a very unusual wave pattern. Now let's see where this has happened before, because this has happened before. So let's go right to here. And this is where this happened before. I reported on this when this was occurring back in 2023. This is February. This is a little typo right there. It says 2024 is 2023. And so we have that similar pattern here going through the Schumann resonances back right before and during a 7.8 earthquake out of Turkey. So this was recorded nearly 4,400 kilometers away in Russia. 7.8 earthquake in Turkey happened near Gaziantep, which is right near, well, fairly close to Gaziantep. And so we see this signal, this wave going from the high frequency to the low frequency and back. So the opposite of what we're seeing right now in Canada, where we're seeing it go from the low frequency up to the high frequency and back, but still this similar long time period energy modulation. Very unusual, because the Schumann resonances are these flat lines. They don't change like that. They vary very slightly in their frequency range and in their power, but they don't undergo these dramatic changes like that. Now you can have things like whistlers, which is a type of energy that exists in our atmosphere, and that will show up here. That kind of has a similar pattern where they like kind of go diagonally into the lower frequencies across time as the energy fades and the high frequencies and the low frequency energy continues to dominate. But here what's so interesting is that it went up. Here's the 7.8 earthquake, the exact moment of rupture, and then we see this release of energy from 24 hertz all the way up to about 15, 16 hertz, and then back down. And that is going from about 8 a.m. local time all the way to 14. So 6 hours. That's a 6-hour long wave of activity. And we saw similar signals appear 4 days before on the 2nd of February. Now, what was paired with this were really big increases in the quality factor, which is anomalous, like going up to, that's up to 50. This was up to 250, very bizarre. We can look at our quality factor data for Tomsk. So let's look at that really quick. We didn't cover that in the last one. But here's our quality factor data. Again, we're not seeing those waves in the Tomsk data. We're seeing it out of Canada, but we don't have these quality factors bumping up significantly. You know, none of these are over 20. They're all under 20. Well, I guess this is 22. Actually, that's kind of 23. A little anomalous for mode 1, but still nothing over 30, nothing super, super significant. Yeah, so very bizarre what we're seeing. I mean, here we can zoom in on Chopron, right? Here's Chopron right there. Oh, sorry, I'm covering it. Here's where they record the data in Chopron right there. No weather activity, right? And then we already looked at the others. So we are seeing this show up in the magnetic field. Here's our magnetic field component out of Italy in a mine. They've put this magnetic field sensor in a mine, so it's blocked by a lot of extra errant signals that are normally there in the, you know, just floating around. As us humans, we've created a lot of electromagnetic noise. That's just junk noise, you know, EMF smog. It shows up even in these low frequencies. So we don't see any of these wave modulations here in the magnetic field component out of Italy. We also don't see them for France. Here's another magnetic field sensor going from 0.1 to 55 hertz for France. There are Schumann resonances. They show up nicely, but we don't see any wave activity in the magnetic field. Question, curious, what do you think the chances of a Carrington-like event taking place during the solar maximum? We can talk about that later. It's not relevant. Not right now. So we have this vertical electric field gradient, and then we have the magnetic field. So let's look at this really quick. Here is Earth, and here is Earth's magnetic field. We have the rotation axis. We have the magnetic axis. Our south magnetic pole is actually in the northern hemisphere, so we call it the north magnetic pole. The north magnetic pole, where the field lines go out, is in the southern hemisphere. And so you see that the field lines are vertical at the poles. So there, your magnetic field is going to be measured in a vertical direction. If you want to measure it, you want your magnetic field sensor to be vertical. And so your electric field is actually going to be horizontal, because that's when you have, they're angled to each other, right? The electric field and magnetic field are perpendicular to each other, orthogonal to each other, and the direction of motion. So here, the vertical field, you measure it horizontally, which is interesting. But typically, anywhere on the globe like this, you measure it vertically, and the magnetic field gets measured horizontally. Now you can measure the magnetic field vertically, but it's not the dominant component. You'll get almost all the energy in the horizontal components as you measure it with a 3-axis magnetometer. So this is our vertical electric field gradient. We have Earth's surface, and then we have the ionosphere up here, about 50,000 meters up. Depends on whether it's day or night. This is about 250,000 volts. Here, this graphic from Feynman shows that it's 400,000 volts, but the equipotential is typically about 250,000 volts. And so what we're measuring are these subtle vibrations existing along this current. And so right now out of Tomsk, we're seeing these vibrations get stronger. We're seeing out of Hungary, these vibrations get stronger. And then out of Canada, we saw those vibrations like normal with a longer frequency vibration modulated on top of it. And so it's very bizarre. And last time we saw something like that was before that 7.8 earthquake in Turkey. Just want to make sure there's nothing else to cover. I think that basically does it. Oh, yeah, we can just quickly look. We did have some geomagnetic activity over the past few days, past 48 hours. So we can just kind of rule out some other things. So we have a better, a more clean slate to work with, you could say. So here is this geomagnetic storm. This was yesterday, and we see that spike to 6.33. I covered that in my last video if you watched it. We're just briefly going to go over this. We had 3 pulses here, 1, 2, 3. So this was an event that charged the ionosphere. You know, this energy is being routed to the ionosphere, and maybe it's these electric currents now flowing out from the ionosphere that's causing these changes. You know, Tomsk and Canada are both fairly close. They're high latitude for the northern hemisphere. So for Tomsk, maybe express itself as an increase in the power, and for Canada, there was these interesting telluric currents that could have formed, creating these power modulations that we're seeing. And those induce currents in the ground surface, and they induce currents in anything that has a circuit within it. So circuits in the ocean, circuits in rocks, circuits in our bodies, our brains, our nervous system. So we did have that geomagnetic storm, but really this isn't that significant. This is going up to not even 5 for that second bump there. So it's not a G1. This was a G1 storm briefly. This was a sub, like a G0, and then this is all just fairly, normal activity, you could say. If we look at our DST index, this lets us look at the ring current that circles around the globe. And when that ring current gets enhanced, the magnetic field strength goes down, the DST index drops. When the ring current weakens, the DST index will go up. And so this is measured in nanotesla. We see that DST has been flat. It didn't really register that geomagnetic storm that we had, that G1. DST has been flat, ring current is normal, according to this measure. And then we can also look at our recent solar wind and electron data. And so we did have this storm here. We did recently just have this period of southward connection with the magnetic field, the interplanetary magnetic field, the solar wind. But overall total field strength is still fairly low. It's not really that high. I mean, it's going up to 10 right there, -8. So that's like kind of getting close to a geomagnetic storm. But this is, you'll notice here, is starting at 1430. So 1430 UTC time for today. Whereas if we go back to our data out of Laurentian University, this is 1140 at the final snapshot before wind. So this is before that occurred. And we actually see, or what, this is from, let's zoom down. This is from 6 to 12, basically, UTC time. If we go here, that's actually right when the solar wind data went out. So here we have our solar wind data cutting out right at 6:15, and then also reappearing just shortly after 11. So why? I can't tell you. I don't know. But we are seeing something interesting and unusual is happening. I don't know what it is. I'm just reporting on the characteristics of this. I hope some of you have been taking notes. Could the HP waves from the last 48 hours be reflected in the overlaid waves from Canada? I don't know what you mean by HP, Amanda. And so all the other factors are looking normal. If I go to the electron flux really quick and proton flux, to make sure. Proton flux is normal. We also see that cut out there, right? Starting at 550, and then this is going to 1050. So here's what's odd about this, is that this is the GO satellite at 5.6 Earth radii. It's a geostationary satellite orbiting with the Earth. And we have this cut out from 550 to just about 11. Then if we go back to our solar wind, this is measured by the Discover satellite at the L1 Lagrange point. So this is not the same satellite. This is like 1% of the distance from the Earth to the sun. It's like 1 million miles out or something crazy. You know, it's way, way, way out there. It's not the GO satellite. This is the Discover satellite data. This also had a dropout at the same time period from about 6 to 11. And we see that during that time period, from 6 to 11, we get this very unusual wave pattern that appeared in Canada. We get this power burst that appeared in Tomsk. Very bizarre. We go to our electron flux really quick. I don't think they've been doing anything, but it's just good to show. And then, yeah, same, it's also GOES, so we see this data drop out. So what is this? I don't know. Is this some sort of geophysical engineering experiment? Hard to say, but then why would the Discover satellite go down? That's out at the L1 Lagrange point. That's very far away. There's no reason that would get turned off for some sort of ionospheric heating experiment. And as far as I know, that's not what they do. They don't turn these satellites off. Something cut out the data feed for both the Discover and the GOES satellite, and also then subsequently the VLF station. So, or I don't know. I'm just basically reporting the specifics of what's happening here. I'm not really making too many claims. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Let's go back here and then we'll be open for Q&A. So make sure you do @Stefan Burns so I see it pop up really nicely, and then the rest of you can continue your conversation as normal. Thanks for all being here in the video. Happy Sunday. Hope you're doing well. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in the chat. You know, it takes two people to make babies and kids. So thank you to all the dads and for all your wonderful masculine influences. One day I'm sure I'll have kids too. Okay, I missed the graph name, the geomagnetic graph. Those waves look like a mirror reflection. The geomagnetic graph. I'm probably seeing things. It's a spectrogram. Well, this is a spectrogram. Always love the updates. Thank you, Hillbilly. Yeah, appreciate your support always. Yeah, happy Father's Day. Hey, Haji. So yeah, just unusual wave activity right now in the Schumann resonances. Let me actually get this centered just a little better. Yeah, I guess that's probably the best. We get the power scale here. So we do see the power scale. You know, this isn't showing up like in the red. This isn't like some super high power wave pattern. But I mean, it clearly shows up very obviously. It's not some hard thing to see. It's not like you really have to like, sometimes the geophysical data, you really have to kind of like squint and see the underlying pattern for like magnetic field maps or things of this nature. It takes some time to analyze. Other times you just see it instantly like we see here. Hi Silent. Hi to everyone that is part of the Soul Tribe and the Schumann Superstars. I see you all there. Again, if you have any questions, leave them below. If you don't get any soon, then I'm going to sign off. I wasn't planning on videoing today because it's Sunday, and you know I like to enjoy my morning cup. But happy to report on this for you all. Thank you, W. Decker for the $10. Blessings, namaste. Appreciate you. Yeah, and so okay, Professor. I'm not a professor, but thank you. Thank you for your good teachings. Always terrific. Thank you so much. Question, could we have transferred to Tesla satellite or energy? I'm not sure what you mean. But if we're speaking on Tesla, back in 2017, I think everyone's heard of Tesla. Back in 2017, I was part of a TV show called Secrets of the Underground. If you didn't know, you go watch this. Season 2, I also show up on Season 1 as a volunteer for a couple episodes. And so one of the episodes for season 2 dealt with Tesla. We went to the old Wardenclyffe Tower site on Long Island. And of course, they deconstructed the tower, which is probably one of the greatest crimes that's been committed, at least in that kind of field. Like they disassemble it for scrap. Of course, this was back during the Great Depression and World War II, so makes sense. But he had built this massive metal tower with this sphere on top, right, which allows it to be perfectly equalized with the electric field. And then he also putting these super deep steel rebar into the earth that connected to telluric currents. And the goal was to create a conduit between the ionosphere, a high conductivity conduit between the ionosphere and whatever power system he had, so all that energy of the ionosphere could be tapped and then driven into whatever he wanted, let's say an electric motor. That site was very, very interesting. And we found a whole bunch of anomalies deep in the surface. Like there was potential like chambers that he built way down there. We really don't know exactly what was happening at Wardenclyffe. But the idea was to tap into that energy of the ionosphere, that vertical electric field gradient. You have all this energy of the ionosphere. And he thought that by building a tower that was big enough, that was conductive enough, you could stimulate the flow of energy from the ionosphere to a greater degree, and then as a result have this free energy. So there's something to that idea. It hasn't been pursued. It would need a lot more work because you still have a lot of energy in between, or a lot of atmosphere in between that tower. Most of the resistance is in the top 2 kilometers. So you would need to get up 2 kilometers and then build some massive tower or something. And you'd have to create like an ionized channel, which we could do now with lasers. So we could build this tower, put a laser on top and stimulate a flow down and create this ionized channel. But I don't know of anyone that's doing that directly. What are your wildest guesses as to why? Okay, and then also I see people saying the poles are switching on Earth, lots of bad stuff is going to happen. Do you think these anomalies are related? Well, there's no real good evidence for a pole shift. I'm going to be I've already talked about this actually quite a lot in various videos. Also my Earth's Magnetic Field Master Guide, I go in depth. There's a link to that in the video description, or you can sign up as a superstar to watch it on my YouTube channel ad-free. But I'll be making more videos on that, but there really isn't good evidence for a pole shift. Like, being a geophysicist, I went to school for geology, went to geophysics. I just read some articles on that. And then I was like, that's interesting. Let me look into that. And then I found those data sources and those videos talking about it. And so being the scientist, I read the papers and I did the thought experiments, and I have an understanding of geologic time. Again, I'm one person. I'm not the only person who can have a claim to truth, right? Just want to make that known. But the data does not support the claims. And the phrase is like, exceptional claims require exceptional data, and we just aren't seeing that. So if the magnetic poles all of a sudden show up at like mid-latitudes, like all of a sudden now it's like hitting Mongolia, the North Magnetic Pole, then we know there's something happening. But right now it's still well within that polar cusp region, so there's nothing really can be concerned about. The field strength is about the same. It's normal. It's actually still higher than our historic average for like the past 20,000 years or so. So everything's fine. And the chance of that happen, the pole shift would happen exactly right around the time that we start to have the ability to measure stuff with magnetometers. It's kind of crazy. Much more likely is that we get the ability to measure these, the magnetic field in a high resolution way with magnetometers, and then our imagination takes us to all these wild dimensions, and we all of a sudden think that we're at the center of an apocalypse, right? Because everyone likes to think that's going to happen, like apocalypse now. It's very unlikely that that's actually what's happening. It's more like a slow news story. Oh, something's not happening with the sun. Let's just say pole shift today, So those are my thoughts and feelings. One of mine, thank you for the $11. Thank you so much. Your segment on the unified quantum field, spot on. Yeah, it was a great video. If you haven't watched that, go watch that. It's my last one I came out with yesterday. What's your favorite power, width, and flow state? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Favorite power, I guess. I suppose when in a flow state, just how everything's going really nicely, naturally, often I get a lot of deja vu. And so, and the deja vu is this, it's like a very clear sense I've been here before. And so when that happens, I really feel like I'm aligned on my soul purpose life mission. And so I'm at that moment of deja vu, it's actually like a future consciousness of mine, like my higher spirit in the past. Like I'm actually in the past at that point, seeing, oh, I've been here before. I just got to keep doing this. And that's always very reaffirming for the direction of going in my faith and everything. And so I guess power, you could say that. It's just very, it's when you are aligned and in flow states often, that's a good sign that you are aligned on your path, your mission, what you need to do for yourself and the world, for the universe, just the energies, right? The quantum field. Because we are actors in this as well. You know, recipients, and also we are doers. And so that feels really nice. There was also a question, wildest guesses as to why? Well, I mean, wildest guess would be some sort of geophysical engineering experiment. Some sort of ionospheric heating experiment. That, I mean, they could do that. You could artificially create a long period variation in the frequency, in the low frequency range, using something like an ionospheric heater. You just simply plug it in. If you have any more questions, again, please at Stefan Burns. That way I can see it pop up. I'm reading through the recent ones, and I'm going to be signing off soon. Tell something about your dreams, please. Do you have it more lately now than usual? Well, it depends on how often I'm recording them. I'm always dreaming, but sometimes I go through phases where I don't record them because they just don't feel all that special. But then there's certain dreams that really grab you and they actually wake you up. And those are ones that I always write down. And so that has happened a little bit more over the past week, or I would say like past few days, past week or so. I think the deja vu means the argon you inhale there has ignited imprint of a past or future experience. I'm not sure what you mean by argon. Like, you mean argon in the atmosphere? So the sun isn't causing this. I don't know. I mean, we did have the GOES geostationary satellite go out at the same time, and also the Discover satellite data drop out. So it could be some solar effect. But our geomagnetic field indices seem normal. We can go look at our magnetic field data. Let's look at that really quick. So we go to, well, let's do it from this tab here. We go to Intermagnet Data Viewer, and let's pull up for example, Boulder, USA, and see if there's anything interesting here. And let's go back couple days, put it to 3, and then view. It looks like the Boulder magnetometer is down. Let's do Fresno. So we can go to Fresno. Here it is. You know, most of us are in the US, so that's why I'm pulling up US data, but I can look at Europe too. And so we see our magnetic field is normal. Nothing unusual with the magnetic field. You know, it has these normal variations. I mean, it doesn't have the nice clean diurnal variations that we normally see, but the scale range really isn't that great. This is 47,430 up to 47,470. So this is only 40 nanotesla swing there. And if we go to Uppsala, Sweden, that one often shows some heightened activity because it's fairly close to the North Magnetic Pole. We can go to Uppsala. And looks normal there. Have you worked with people who can feel shifts in the body? They can sense earthquakes, seed storms, felt the gravitational pull charge. Yeah, I mean, a lot of energy sensitives. I've definitely worked with people that feel these. I think often, though, sometimes it is just like normal health effects. And, you know, people in the space weather community and this energy community, they get really excited by this stuff, you know. People want to make a living, so you're going to be making lots of videos on a solar flare every single day, for example. I mean, I release videos when they are important. I'm not just doing this stuff every single day just because I want to drum up excitement. But it's just, as it is with anything. You know, your attention goes with where your focus is. So if you're always hearing this stuff and always tracking every single solar flare, and you're always in the background hearing about some sort of impending apocalypse, and then it's just what you're feeding yourself is really important, you know, energetically and mentally. So I think then often sometimes actual health symptoms get put onto this external influence. And so this external influence, like the sun, does influence our health. But for being honest, often it's the fact that maybe you had 4 muffins last night, right? Like, lay off the muffins and you may not have the big energy swing because of your insulin production, right? And blood glucose. So there is that factor. We got to be honest with ourselves. There is that factor. But yeah, I've also met people that definitely, they feel this like as it's coming in, like I'm there with them. And so it's very unusual. And some people are just very sensitive to these fields. It depends on your makeup. Everyone's different makeup. You can look at an astrology chart, for example, like if you have a lot of 12th house placements, then you're going to be more susceptible to these external energies because that's all about that. Yeah, the muffins. We like muffins, but not 4 of them at night and then blame it on the M3 flare or something. Like, come on. Let's be realistic. So I don't know exactly where St. John's, Canada is. I know it's in Canada. Okay, that's missing data. Not all these data stations are up, by the way. But hopefully we can see. Okay, so this is interesting. Data drop out of Canada, but we see this big swing there. Which is kind of odd because that storm wasn't really that significant, but here we get a 400 nanotesla drop. No tracking, just jarring feelings, but then it happens, predicted earthquake and the manufactured storm coming. Veronica, what do you mean by manufactured storm? Let's go to another Canada site, see if we're seeing that across multiple. Fort Churchill. Yeah, so some interesting geomagnetic activity out of Canada right now too. I didn't look at this data before, and we see them all kind of cutting off around the same time as well. So maybe there's some sort of ionospheric heating going on in Canada right now. Let's check this out. I mean, that geomagnetic storm was only G1, and we're seeing some pretty big drops here in the field. Let's see if Calgary has one. I don't know all these locations where Canada's a big country, west to east, and we want to get one that's close to our observatory. So I'm not sure which one that is. Baker Lake's looking more normal. I don't know where that is in Canada, but in general, that's this part of the globe. So yeah, that's our magnetic field data. But if you just go back here, we're going to wrap up. If you have any final questions, tag me now and ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to be signing off. So thank you all for joining the video. This is what we have happening. This data is now out of date. It's 1140 UTC. Let me refresh this one last time to make sure. Yeah, still out of date. So that's the latest that we have out of Canada, but it's these very weird energy modulations that we're seeing. And then if we go to our Thompson data here, we see that this really nice power wave, and I can actually update that as well. And this is during, look at that, perfect capture. This is during clear weather conditions out of Tomsk. So St. John's is in Newfoundland. Okay, that's fairly close. So this is also unusual out of Russia, and so this isn't wind, so it's not microphonics as far as we know. I mean, the wind's normal there. I checked, and then it's also not a thunderstorm like passing overhead. I checked that as well. So this could be, if I had to make an assessment, I'd say that there was this charging event that occurred at the poles because of the proton radiation storms that we've had for a week now, and then also that geomagnetic storm, that energy built up and is now broadcasting out around the globe. And so the areas that are going to feel that energy first are going to be the areas that are just slightly lower in latitude. So that would be Russia, that would be Canada, right, on both sides of that North Magnetic Pole. Those are where the 2 flux lobes are. We actually have the North Magnetic Pole flux tube goes like this, it routes energy in, and it splits into 2, it bifurcates. So the energy will actually go towards Russia and Canada simultaneously. And then there's an area in the North Arctic Ocean where it's kind of weaker, where you'll have a lower energy flux. So I would say that's what we're seeing. We also do at times see energy waves exist in the solar wind. So it's possible that we're having this low frequency energy pulsation that we're seeing in Canada actually embedded in the solar wind, being delivered directly to the Earth, and then that's being modulated and shown up in the Schumann resonances. But it's kind of how does that occur? It would have to be modulated through the ionosphere. So there's something happening with the ionosphere. If you can take any take home from this, something's happening with Earth's ionosphere in the northern hemisphere such that we're seeing these power increases and these frequency modulations. So last question will be with Lottie. Is it possible to feel the Schumann resonance in the body? Sometimes I can feel vibrations on the floor through my feet. Yeah, it is possible to feel it in the body, though you typically have to get to a very quiet state. So for example, I've felt subtle energies in my body when I've been in that liminal space in between dreams and waking, especially like right at the boundary of waking up. So for example, with like coffee, I've had coffee before and then took a nap. For some reason I got sleepy right after I took it. This is when I was drinking a little too much coffee. And I then felt those caffeine vibrations. It was like this whole experience. I could feel what the caffeine was doing to me energetically at a very like subtle and deep cellular scale. And so there's times where if you get into certain places and other sensory inputs go way down, right? That's what's required, that your other sensory inputs go way down such that your such that your other subtle sensory inputs are now strong enough to speak to you directly, because your brain is processing all this information all the time. Right now I'm on camera, right? I'm speaking to everybody. I have my eyes open, I'm hearing things, I'm feeling the wind from the fan, right? So I have all these senses coming in, like the taste of the coffee, right? I'm not feeling the Schumann resonance right now because I'm presenting. But if I was to lay down, take a nap, and now that's been on my mind, perhaps my mind could tune to that energy frequency and feel it. But I really think that's required. If you're feeling vibrations through your feet, then that could just be the fact that maybe your feet are vibrating. Or sometimes there are these kind of subtle vibrations of the earth. There's microtremors that exist. That's called passive seismic when you measure microtremors, the naturally existing vibrations of the earth. So maybe you're feeling those. Maybe an 18-wheeler drove by. Hard to say. There's a couple others that came in. Daras, I've learned so much from you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is it affecting the heat dome that's causing the extreme temps in northeastern USA? Yeah, so that's also speaking to the ionosphere, right? So you get this heat dome over eastern US. That's a very different vertical electric field and electric circuit configuration than, let's say, a low pressure system, which is bringing everything in. So that is close to that Canada station. That could be part of it. Hard to say. I'm glad I'm not there right now because, yeah, those temperatures and humidity is brutal. One more. Do you think the CBX1 and CBX2 that see the storms are affecting the ionosphere as well? Well, we do know there's weather modification manipulation that is going on. I don't know what you mean by CBX1 and CBX2, like that's the type of plane perhaps. But how much weather manipulation is occurring? That's kind of an open-ended question. When you see a contrail, not every single one of those is a chemtrail. A lot of those are just normal plumes of engine exhaust. But we do know that there is like chemical spraying that's occurring. I mean, for example, I think the United Arab Emirates basically got caught red-handed because they're trying to bring in rain, and then they did that when there was a normal system coming in and it created floods. But I would say more weather manipulation is occurring than the average person thinks, and much less weather manipulation is occurring than the person who talks about chemtrails thinks. So we'll leave it there. Thank you all for joining in for this kind of informal live stream on what's happening in Schumann resonances. I'll keep you up to date. We'll see if this data feed out of Canada comes back online. I'll be looking at this data closely, but now today I'm going to be resting, relaxing, and sipping on my Arnold Palmers. That was the plan for today. So I hope you also have a great Sunday, a great Father's Day. Happy Father's Day for all the fathers out there. And yeah, spend time outside, spend time with friends and family, loved ones, and wishing you all well. And with that, we're going to sign off And just, again, blessings, namaste, love and light.